Hi, and welcome to this video. My name is Janis and I want to share with you some sweet little performance setup for creating live techno in a very simple way, and it's based on a video I posted the other week. I'm going to link it here. It's a little performance and it's only made with 3 sounds and a few controls. So I'm using the Nord drum and the Syntakt, but you can also apply my drumming technique, for example, to another sequence. So you don't need to drum. I'm just a drummer and love playing, so that's what I do here. And also you don't need to use the Syntakt, can also be the Digitakt or even like a DAW. Although this works in a DAW-less setup, which is also why I like it so much. And you will see that you can transfer those settings to whatever you're using, because I really try to focus on simple things, but those simple things are super fun, and all the time I play this way, it just inspires me to keep playing and to actually jam. And I think that's a very healthy mind state, and I hope this video can also allow you to feel this. And this being said, let's jump right into it. So the sounds are pretty straightforward. Here I have a kick drum, a pretty low kick. It's the bass drum classic, and you can see the settings here in case you want to copy them, but it really works with any kick drum. And I also used a little bit of filtering for making it even a bit more snappy. And the sequence looks like this, super simple, just 4 quarter notes. And I also have a cymbal part that changes sound with every trigger, and that's the technique I absolutely love with the Syntakt. But let's first check the basic settings. So it's the cymbal right. Those are the values, and as you could see, there's also some filter going on, highlighting a little particular frequency for cymbal sounds. I really like doing that. And there's also lots of delay, because the sequence itself only has the offbeats, but the delay makes it sound like there are more notes. So together they actually sound like this. And the variation comes from the LFO. So there's one LFO modulating the decay. So you can see here the syn decay. And I always use the random or sample and hold waveform with the hold mode. That means that only one value gets sent per trigger. And it's just super inspiring also for playing with it, because it's quite musical. There's variation and you can react to it. And there's a second LFO that also messes a little bit with the tuning. And overall, it's just super fun to check this section and to listen to the sound and try different modulations. So here we could actually move or let it play, and then I'm going to change the destination. This is also cool. Here we even mess more with the decay because, it's the hit decay. But yeah, definitely one of my favorite Syntakt functions. And as you could hear, there were the effects going on. So let's check the delay. So here we have the dotted 8th notes, making it really rhythmical. I really like this setting, and also some ping-ponging going on, adding some stereo delay. Also for the sequence that we'll check in a second. And the reverb is also quite large. I somehow often prefer the large reverb sounds with the Syntakt. Depends to your taste, of course, but that's a setting I use quite a lot. Now, before checking the melodic sequence, there's a thing I found out about Syntakt that I used for this little performance video, which is that you can mute tracks with some external MIDI controller. So this is pretty cool. I have my foot controller here, and it's CC94 for the corresponding channel. So if you want to mute channel 9, for example, you have to create a MIDI control with CC94 on channel 9. And I need it for channel 9 and also for channel 12. Now, you could connect the soft step directly to the Syntakt with some adapter, but I don't have it, so I have Ableton in between because I need it anyways for recording. So it's not completely DAW-less, but kind of DAW-less, because this would work without the DAW just as well. I just would need this adapter, and for any MIDI controller you can connect it directly, and if you choose this node or this CC value, you can control it. So now you can see when I press button 4, for example, I mute track 12 and I bring it back in, and the same works for track 9. I have it on the lower row. Those would actually control the ones in between, but here I only need the 2 of them. And that's just super cool if you use your hands for playing. Could be the same situation if you're playing some piano, for example. Let's also check the sequence sound, and again, this is really up to taste. Here I chose a square wave because they sound super bouncy on the Nord drum. The filter is like closed, but I have the dynamic filter at some medium setting, which is already enough for playing super expressively. The decay looks like this, no bend time, and the pitches are of course individual. I'll speak about them in a second. Also, there's a little bit of drive, and yeah, the effects I actually use on the Syntakt, because if you go to, actually you hold down function and LFO, you can control the input volume here for whatever input you send into the Syntakt, and you can also apply effects. So I was using the Syntakt reverb and delay as well for just making it sound more coherent and not using different types of delays and reverbs. So I just want to give you some example of the dynamic range of the Nord drum while playing sequence. So sometimes I'll play it softly, sometimes I'll increase the volume, and you can see how well it responds to my playing. Maybe you realized that there was one particular technique I used for creating the sequences, which is a combination of 2 strokes with my right hand and 1 with my left hand. And this just works so well with the 4 on the floor kick drum pattern because it creates some rhythmic interplay, because this is a group of 3 and the other pattern is like a 16th note based group that highlights all quarter notes. So there's a 3 against 4, that's how you call it, situation that gets created. And I'll demonstrate it to you in a slower tempo. So let's slow this down, and I'll just use 2 pads, maybe like those 2 ones, and just see if you can understand this rhythmic idea. By the way, in case you have both instruments or one of those instruments and are looking for some new sounds, I have sound banks for both the Nord drum and the Syntakt, and for Nord drum also I have some classes. And besides all the free stuff you can find on my YouTube channel, those things really help you to understand the instruments in a deeper way. So if this sounds interesting to you, just check out the link down below in the description. So you see, we sometimes overlap bar lines, and that's something I really like, because in techno there's a tendency for things to sound pretty static and for things to sound always like, okay, there's a section of 4 bars, 8 bars, etc. And if you have a pattern, especially like a melodic sequence, that doesn't always resolve after 1 bar, but keeps overlapping, it remains a little more interesting. And if you combine this with the expressive qualities that I was showing you, playing with the dynamics and sometimes playing a bit louder, softer, and having the filter react to it, it's already a pretty dynamic sound, I feel. And playing 2 notes right after each other is something you would rather not do on a piano. So if you try to come up with a sequence on a piano, it's unlikely that you create this type of sequence. So it's good to know that maybe you want to explore things in another way. And I feel like as a drummer, that's a big advantage, because you're used to those patterns and they are just so much fun. And on the Nord drum, it's also a great restriction, because you have to select 6 pitches and then you're stuck with those 6 pitches. You can't sit on the piano noodling, because you always have all notes at your disposal. And sometimes I feel like this helps making better compositions and sequences, because also on the Syntakt, if I would choose a melodic sound and then I choose the keyboard, I mean, there's a tendency for just sticking to scales, which can be cool, but I like to also use a wider range, because if you check the pitches here, we start with a pretty low bass note, and then the next note is already 1 octave and a 4th higher. And this can sound super cool and open, because now we have some more notes. Like this one is just like 2 semitones. This is like a scale, but here again it's a bigger jump. It's like 5 semitones, again a 4th. And then we have a 3rd, and again 2 semitones. If you use the whole range, it sounds pretty open, because you have a bass tone but also some higher melodic tones. And actually I made a full video about using drumming techniques for creating sequences. Even if you're not a drummer, it should be really interesting because it gives you lots of tools for designing and composing your own sequences. I'm going to link it here. And on the Syntakt, or maybe with some other instruments, you can also imitate the same type of situation by choosing the same sound, but assigning a pitch per sound. So you play it actually not with the scale function of the Syntakt, but with the regular triggers. So here I have 6 times the same sound, but with different pitches. So you can see on the trig menu that here they have different pitches, but I can try to play in the way that I played here by applying the right, left movement. And I'm just going to start the kick drum cymbal pattern and see how this sounds like. Oh, and I'm actually going to increase the tempo a bit because this is really slow. And if you have the Syntakt plus a MIDI control that you use for playing like a keyboard, be known that you can really specify how the Syntakt reacts to velocity. I made a video about how you can control sounds with MIDI controllers on the Syntakt. I'm also going to link it here because it's really fascinating, and you can basically do what I do here with other controllers and play sounds in a super expressive way. Now those are all the tools I have. So I can mute the kick drum, bring it back in. I can mute the cymbal, can bring it back in. And I have 6 different pitches for playing my melodic sequence. And I think this live playing thing is such a cool thing because if you program your sequence, it's always going to repeat itself at a certain point. I mean, you can use generative functions, but here you make all decisions live and you can still record the MIDI and quantize it later if you're not so happy with your timing. But for your feeling, you can capture it. So if you have a feeling at a certain point, you want to go to that note or that note, it's fun and you can really think like a improviser or composer because with a beat that has a lot of tension, you can stay, for example, for a lot of time, for a long time on the same pitch, starting only with the bass, for example. And I'll just jam a little and show you some different combinations of sounds and tones. It's a bit difficult to talk while playing because it's a bit technical with those sequences. But yeah, I just want to give you some examples. And yeah, that's it about this little live setup. I really hope you liked this video and it inspires you to create your own little hypnotic techno type live performance setup with whatever you're using. And if you want to see the performance video where I jam with this for like 5 minutes, you can find it here. And also here's a playlist with more videos about creative performance setups with different types of instruments, sometimes also a DAW. So we warmly invite you to check out those videos. And apart from that, I wish you lots of inspiration with whatever it is that you create and really hope to see you soon again at this channel. Bye.